Hello everyone and welcome to Pailagam podcast Anaivarkum Vanakkam. Tamil Nadu receives today a lot of tourism from different parts of the world as well as from different parts of the Indian Union. As per the 2022 statistics of the Union Ministry of Tourism, Tamil Nadu ranks at first place with domestic tourists, that is Indian tourists, and sixth place with foreign tourists. When tourists come from different parts of the world, often the experience is excitement from the tourists as well as the native, because new cultures meeting, new languages meeting, new attitudes meeting, and there's so much to see in Tamil Nadu. However, when we have Indian tourists from different parts of India, specifically from the central part of India, often the first experience is shock at the fact that people do not speak Hindi.
ஆங்கிலம் இது ரெண்டு மொழி இருந்தால் போதும், தேவையில்லாத எங்களுக்கு ஹிந்தி எங்களுக்கு வேண்டாம்.
பேர் ஃபெமினா தமிழ் செல்வன். நாங்கள் எங்கள் பசங்களை தமிழ் மீடியம் தான் படிக்க வைக்கிறோம். 3 பசங்களையும் எங்களுக்கு தமிழ்நாட்டில்.
This sometimes gets exacerbated into a bad experience for the person who speaks Hindi who comes to this state. A lot of the damage of this is from the Indian Union itself. The government of India often tries to convince people, and different states of India try to convince people that Hindi is the national language of India. Let us be clear, there is no national language. Hindi is not the national language of India. India does not have a national language. India has many official languages, out of which Hindi is definitely one of them, but so is Tamil. This further exacerbated by the factor that people think that India is a nation. India is less a nation but a union of states. This is said so in the Constitution of India in one of the first lines. Along with this also comes a slight distaste to Sanskrit. Why so? Why do Tamil people and Tamil Nadu not have a preference to Hindi or to Sanskrit? Let's look at that today. Before we get into this video, I'd like to state here that old ancient Tamil literature does not talk about Sanskrit or Hindi, of course, but about Vadamori. Vadamori literally meaning north language. This is shown all over the place when words from northern languages are portrayed in Tamil, but this is not to say it is against Sanskrit or against Hindi in particular. So why do Tamil people today not prefer to speak Hindi, and why do people not want to speak in Sanskrit? Why do they not want to learn Sanskrit? Why would they rather learn Tamil and stay with that? At a closer look at Tamil, Kannada, Malayalam and Telugu, and of course there are many other languages that are Dravidian like Tulu and other languages in North India, in Pakistan today, as well in Odisha side. But one of the clear differences between Tamil and every other Dravidian language is that Tamil has the least amount of Sanskrit or otherwise other native northern languages. A thing that stands out between Tamil and the other Dravidian languages is that while all languages have words and vocabulary from other languages, Tamil does not hold any grammar from any of the northern languages, while Kannada, Malayalam and Telugu have other languages within the language. They have other grammar within the language, and that is very, very different from Tamil. So in a sense, when a person speaks better and better Kannada, they sound more Sanskrit. When a person speaks better and better Malayalam, they sound more Sanskrit. And when a person speaks better and better Telugu, they sound actually a little bit more Sanskrit. And that is what it means to be educated, to sound a little bit more Sanskrit. However, when a person speaks better and better Tamil, they only sound more and more Tamil and less Sanskrit. That's a very unique difference between the other Dravidian languages and Tamil. The factor of Tamil not being dependent on Sanskrit grammar or any other northern language grammars makes Tamil somehow feel independent from the rest of the Indian Union in terms of languages. At the outset, it must be stated here that Sanskrit is tied to caste somehow. It has always been a particular elite class that were able to speak Sanskrit, and that was in the Aryan communities. Only the Vaishyas, the Kshatriyas and the Brahmins were allowed to read or write or have anything to do with Sanskrit. It is an unfortunate turn of events for the language Sanskrit that it has never actually found a place in history outside of the structure of caste. Caste has been intertwined and part and meddled with Sanskrit at all times. The system has found itself in most of the major texts of Sanskrit, be it the Vedas, The Rig Veda specifically talks about it. The Bhagavad Gita specifically talks about it. Manudharma, as well as the Shrutis and the Smritis, all of them talk about Varna system. It has also been specified that the Punul, which is the sacred thread, is only tieable by three castes, three Varnas, which is the Brahmins, Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas, the Aryan cultures, and not by the Shudras, which is actually the blacker people. Now, why do I actually say black people? Because the Rig Veda actually specifically states it. They call it the Shama Varnas, the darker race, or they even say worse and more derogatory names like Apaurishayas, non-humans, Devatas, non-believers in people who believe in their gods, Brahmanas, non-Brahmins, Mlechadeshis, outlanders, and then Dashyus, Dushyants, Rakshasas, Asuras. All of these are termed on people who are not them, which is the Vaishyas, the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas. Also stated in the Vedas and further supported in the Manusmriti is the question of Dvija, the twice born, the people who are allowed to wear the sacred thread, and this is only for the people of the Vaishya, Kshatriya and Brahmin Varnas, and specifically only for males. They don't apply to females. The history of South India shows that most of the people of South India, which are the non-Brahmins, were not allowed to wear the sacred thread, and only some communities have actually enforced it by actually wearing it against the laws. But the Brahmins believed that the Tamilians and the Keralans should not wear the sacred thread, therefore making us all Shudras. It can be seen in parts of Kerala and Tamil Nadu that most of the people, the subcastes, the various castes, actually do not wear the sacred thread, even if they claim themselves as Kshatriyas. Many of them, even if they claim themselves as Brahmins, many of them do not wear the sacred thread. On the other hand, you find people from various different castes breaking the system by saying, we will also wear the sacred thread. You are nobody to tell us to wear or not to wear the thread. Those who are more interested in castes and Varnas and the history of this, please read Dr. Ambedkar's writings. He has written a lot. He has done many studies and anthropological studies on the Varna system, on the caste system and its history. Now, without going too much into the history of caste and Varna, it is a long-winded and terrible story, and it continues on today. That is the most unfortunate part. But let's just say that as per Sanskrit, it has found itself in the unfortunate position of continuously propagating caste. It goes all the way into the Bhagavad Gita, where the Bhagavad Gita says, and I quote here from the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 4 verse 13, Krishna says, Chaturvarnam maya shrishtam gunakarma vibhagasha. Literally meaning the four varnas, the four colors, or later on translated as the four categories of occupation, were created by me according to people's qualities and activities, according to their gunas and their karmas. Although I am the creator of the system, know me to be the non-doer and eternal. Now, this is many times argued by people that guna karma vibhagasha will literally meaning based on your gunas and your karma and not based on your birth. However, these two things are actually intertwined, and the Bhagavad Gita itself says so in chapter 3 as well as in chapter 18. In chapter 3 it says, Shreyan swadharmo viguna paradharmatsva anushtitat swadharme Nidhunam Shreya Paradharmo Bhagavaha. Literally meaning that it is better to do your naturally prescribed duty and not somebody else's duty, even though you might be better at somebody else's job, but you must do the one that is prescribed to you naturally by birth. Now, no Sanskrit scholar, and my pronunciation of Sanskrit is not very good, even though I know how to read it, but this pretty much shows us a lot about what the Bhagavad Gita actually states to us regarding Varna and caste. If anyone has any more doubt and they know the Manusmriti, it's stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the chapter 4, verse 1, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavam Aham Avyayam Visvavam Manave Praha Manur Ikshvakave Bravit. This in English translated as, the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna said, I taught this eternal science of yoga to the sun god Vivasvan, who passed it on to Manu, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. Now, such disturbing details do show a lot about Sanskrit and why Tamilians don't really love Sanskrit. Tamil has always had a sense of equality, a sense of Pirapokkum Yella Uvirkum Sirapova Seidoril Vetrumayan, and of course the famous Yadum Ure Yavarum Kelir. literally meaning that we do not separate people based on anything. Their works are different from each other, but they should not be discriminated. Let's just say that those are all past stories and now it's everything new. And why are Tamilians so fighting against Sanskrit when today it's not there anymore? This fight does not exist. It still does exist. The contradictions still do exist, and the caste system still does very, very much exist. Let me show you an example of how Tamil is constantly being pushed back within the Indian Union, where every language is supposed to have its own value and its own importance. The Indian Postal Service, run by the Government of India, usually runs examinations to apply into the Postal Service and to join the Postal Service. Now, in 2019, 3 days before the conducting of the exams, the Indian government suddenly put out a notice that the postal examinations will only run in English or Hindi. That means that students of various states who had studied for the postal exam for so many months in order to get inside, 3 days before, suddenly they can only write in English or Hindi. Now, what is the problem with this? The problem literally means that the person who studied in their state language either cannot write the exam or will not pass the exam. And even if they do, if I am studying in a foreign language, English or Hindi, and if a Hindi person is writing the exam in a native language, which is Hindi, or a foreign language in English, what is the chance that he will win or she will win and I will lose? As a Tamilian, I will not have as much chance as them. Now creating again the same old hierarchies, now based on language, making sure that other languages dissipate, and through that your culture dissipates, your values dissipate, and in this the problem is still based on caste. In such a situation, is there a wonder that the Tamil people, the people who are very proud, who love their language, who care for their culture, now have a problem with Hindi or Sanskrit or the domination? The question is not about my language or your language. Every language has the right to live and exist within the people that actually speak it, and nobody needs to have any other language enforced upon them. If we choose a language to learn as a second language of our own, it's because it grows us and not because it dominates us, and that is a huge difference. In order to recognize this, it's very important to first recognize it is not about unity in disparity or unity in uniformity, but about diversity. People have their own cultures, people have their own homes, people have their own ways, their values and their languages, and yet as India we can be very united. This needs to be understood and accepted by Indians in order for India to grow and perform, and not try to be at war with itself, not try to fight itself at all times, and people that are part of the Indian Union. And what are your thoughts on the matter? Would you prefer to allow each state and each people to have their own language, their own culture and their own administrative structure and still be united together? Or would you prefer that everyone needs to have their one language so that it makes it easier to communicate, or one language so that we have one culture? You can write your comments below and let us know what your ideas on the matter is, and it would be nice to keep a discussion going on the particular topic of language and language diversity. Thank you very much, and see you next time.